Hello, Tanya Bennett here. I am here with you today to ask if you are tired of having to deal with plagiarism in your classroom. I'm an English professor, and all English teachers have those moments where they just want to pull their hair out because they have another student who has plagiarized an assignment and they have to decide what to do about it. I don't claim to have all the answers. I mean, we've all been struggling with this for, maybe forever since the written word came into being. But I do have a few ideas after 30 years of teaching that I would like to pass along in case you're ready to try something new. Some of you may be already doing this, so you'll already know that it does help. So, number one, use Turnitin.com. Some professors are a little skeptical about this service that compares student writing to a database full of writing to see if any of the passages are word for word from another source. I was around in the olden days when we didn't even have the internet, and when I got a plagiarized paper, I had to go to the library, pull the sources off the shelf, go through articles looking for a passage that might match the one that my student had written. And sometimes I did find it, but I would waste many, many hours of my time doing this. Maybe it wasn't wasted if I wrote them up. Maybe they learned their lesson. Let's think about the possibilities of whether they learned their lesson after all that work that I did. So use Turnitin.com and it will save you so much time. And honestly, I even let the students look at it. They can look at their own report. They might have accidentally plagiarized. You mean people accidentally plagiarize sometimes? Can you honestly say you never accidentally plagiarized back when you were a student and you were pulling information out of books and notes and then going back and writing your paper? And maybe looking at something and thinking, gee, did I write that down word for word or did I paraphrase it? So use Turnitin.com. Number two, always assign an annotated bibliography as part of the pre-work for a research project. Now this assumes you're doing a research paper. This is during the research phase. It gives students a lot of guidance as they're actually looking for articles and books on their topic. The assignment sheet kind of helps them figure out what types of sources they're supposed to be looking for. It's a pretty involved sheet that I give out, but it basically walks them step by step through finding sources. I explain to them that this assignment is a lot harder than it looks. It's only going to be about 2 pages long, and it may only count for about 10% of their grade, their overall course grade. So it may seem like a small assignment. And I've had students say, this is taking me way longer than I think it's supposed to be taking. And I say, no, this is going to be a lot harder than it looks. You have to do several things to complete this assignment. You have to find the right kinds of sources, which can be tricky. You have to read those sources, and I let them know ahead of time, some of these articles might be 30 pages long, and they're not going to be easy to read. Some might be even longer. They might even find a book and have to read the introduction to the book. So that part is going to take a while. And then on top of that, they have to find a way to take a 30-page article and reduce it down to 100 words in their summary. So we talk a little bit about what a summary is and how difficult it is and how it's higher order thinking. I tell them this is going to hurt your brain, and that's good because we are carving out neural pathways, and that process can be a little frustrating and uncomfortable, but you're stretching your brain. You're making it more capable as you're doing this assignment. Once they finish that assignment, they've really got something. Now, once they turn it in, yes, there may be plagiarism, so I turn on the Turnitin.com button. What do you do if you catch someone who's plagiarized in their annotated bibliography because they have to do a summary. Now, I tell them they're not allowed to quote anything in this summary. More difficult pain in their brain, but part of the process. To understand something well enough to summarize it means you have to be doing some higher order thinking. Even if it was something simple, to put it in your own words is easier than just memorizing something. So what I do I write them up? Do I get them kicked out of the university? Do I make it so that they can never be successful in a writing career? Believe it or not, I've completely given up turning people in for this. What? You're letting people get away with plagiarizing? It's actually a crime in the United States of America. Yes, I've given up. The final time that I wrote someone up for plagiarism and turned it in, the thing stayed in appeal for about a year, and at the last minute, our president overturned it. So after all that time that I put in, trying to make the case that this student needed to repeat the course because she just hadn't mastered the concepts necessary to go further, and furthermore, I wasn't sure about her ethical foundations, the president overturned it. The student had gotten a lawyer, and she was not going to let it go. So, did I lose a moral battle? Possibly. Even if she had been convicted, would she have decided that I was right? I have my doubts, knowing this particular student. Regardless, most of the cases that I get where people have plagiarized are accidental. You may think I'm a pushover, but I've watched this happen over and over and over again. And I've talked with students. I talked to a young man last spring who said, I'm afraid that if I put this into my own words, I'm going to get it wrong. That's a very real fear, isn't it? That you'll try to summarize something and you will not have understood what you read well enough to do it accurately. Which one is worse? To get a bad grade for just missing the meaning of something you read, or taking a chance on passing with the risk of getting turned in for plagiarism? I've just stopped turning them in. What I do is I put some sort of big red flag on their assignment, and I say, I have to give you a 0 for this. I can't give any credit for plagiarized material. We must meet before you can do anything to rectify the situation. Then I will talk with them. I'll ask a lot of questions. I'll try to find out what's going on. And I will let them know that the only way for them to get any credit for this assignment is to rewrite it. The rewriting is helpful. It does force them to go in there and do that hard work that's hurting their brain. And even if they do a poor job of it, there's some kind of progress made. It's forced them to think through some things that they haven't thought through before. You don't have to give them all the credit for the assignment. You can give them an automatic penalty of 20, 30 points just because they didn't fulfill the assignment the way they were told to fulfill it. However, my goal is to help this student succeed. My goal is not necessarily justice. So I want to help them succeed. And if I can reach out to them and help them kind of change their thinking on this, I have found that that's a little bit more productive than showing them that they simply cannot get away with this. So I will have them rewrite and resubmit. And therefore, they do still do the work. Their grade is going to suffer a little bit, but I try to make it manageable that they might be able to pass the class still. And that they'll learn something. And that their paper might be good in the long run because they actually read the sources. Now, let me say that I'm going to throw in a number 4 that doesn't have a lot to do with plagiarism. I have begun giving every student a chance to earn some points back on their assignments. I know many people have been doing this for decades, using a portfolio method maybe, where they never get a final grade until the very end. I've not had a lot of luck with that, with having them really make good progress in their revised papers. Some people are great with that method. I just haven't been able to make it work very well. So what I do is I hand back their papers digitally with my feedback on them, and I'll give them some instructions for earning back some points. Generally, I ask them to revise according to my feedback as one of the things they have to do to earn those points back. Other things I might ask them to do include maybe a worksheet on a particular grammar problem that I saw over and over. I hope that if they do the worksheet and then do the revision, they will maybe internalize the grammar rule that I'm trying to get them to understand. It doesn't matter. They're struggling with it. They're trying to think through what a comma splice is. Honestly, they're still working on those neural pathways, even if they don't understand at the end how to avoid comma splices. They're thinking about language and how it's put together. It can't hurt, right? And they've tried. So I give them those points back if they come close. Other things that they might need to work on with the annotated bibliography that if they revise could really help them moving forward are, number one, did they find the right kinds of sources? This way, a student doesn't have to fail if they used all popular sources from Google. I can say, you need to go back and rewrite this entire thing. And guess what? Maybe they'll accidentally learn what they should have learned the first time around. Secondly, I often find that they've completely missed the boat on MLA documentation or whatever documentation style you're asking them to use. So they have to go back and fix that. Yes, they may not have memorized that style by the end, but they will understand at the very least that some submissions are simply going to require that they go look up those rules. Third, if their summary is not very good, I have a kind of standard comment that I put in the margin. It says, for the most effective summary, state clearly and specifically the author's central argument. Then follow with a description of how the author develops and supports that argument. It's only going to be about 4 sentences long. But that way, if they didn't understand that the first time through, now that they've seen kind of how loose and maybe incoherent their summary is, or maybe that they've even misread the article, they may have to go back and struggle with that a little bit. And remember, it's the struggling that's the goal. Finally, if there are some prose problems, if they've just got a lot of kind of goofy sentences or some grammar problems, you can address those and they can go back and work on those. Even in something like an upper level English course, they can still be working on those things. So let me just say that after doing that assignment, you may think that it's taking me a long time to grade it, but it really isn't. I can very quickly identify those several items that I just listed. I don't have to fix every problem for them. I can give them a couple of examples of each one. Say, hey, you've got a comma splice here. You didn't use MLA format correctly in this entry. Your summary's, not connecting things very well. And then when I write the comments about what they need to do to fix everything, I simply sum up those things that I've indicated on the paper. And after that assignment, my job gets a lot easier. I look to see if they've made a good faith effort to do all the things I asked. And even if the paper isn't perfect, I give them at least partial credit for working on the revisions, because that is part of the learning process. And finally, the best reward of all of this is the papers are so much better. Now they have the right kinds of sources before they even start writing the paper. They actually have read all the sources, at least partially. They have an investment in those sources. So they are very, very rarely going to throw those sources out and turn in a paper that has nothing to do with those sources. Now they have some material, they have some knowledge, and they actually want to talk about it. Once they develop a little bit of expertise, their attitude changes about the project. So this is my advice. I'm still learning as well, and I always appreciate advice from people who have been teaching for a while and have stumbled onto some really good strategies. So I hope this helps someone out there, and let's keep fighting the good fight. Good writing is good thinking. So what we do is worthwhile. Thanks.